Everyone's wondering where the market's going to be in 2023, and a lot of the experts have already put out their predictions as to where the market's going to go. But I wanted to pick out a few things that really stuck out to me the most, share them with you, and then you can do your own homework and figure out where you land in all of this craziness in the housing market, what we've seen over the last 7 months. So one of the predictions that have come out, which I agree with, is flat appreciation. I think the National Association of Realtors and many other publications and sources have all agreed that housing is going to be fairly flat this year. However, there are certain parts of the country that will experience some growth. They've mentioned parts of the South as well as the Northeast. And then you also have some parts that probably will suffer more than others, mainly being California and I think the Washington market as well, up there in the Northwest. So it's like anything else. Whatever usually moved up the fastest and gained the most appreciation is probably going to be the market that gets hit the hardest as well, because what goes up must come down. I think in those markets, you have to be a little more cautious with your home purchase, or if you're a seller and you have to be really realistic with what you think you're going to get for your house, because I'm sure the longer a house sits on the market, the more a buyer will feel like they can get a deal and they're going to lowball the heck out of you to get that house purchased. So you probably need to come out the gates blazing with something reasonable in order to attract some offers and hopefully get the home sold for a reasonable price. Now, even with this flat appreciation, this is something we haven't seen in a number of decades. So this is going to be a first for the real estate industry. Normally, we see appreciation anywhere from 5 to 7%. Obviously, during COVID, we were seeing double-digit numbers, even upwards of 20% annually. That's why the market was just so insane back then. But we need to level things out. Things got way too overheated. Interest rates in the 2 and 3% range was just way too low. It's something we've never seen in over 50 years. And it really got everybody buying a house. And now we're paying the price for it. So we need some correction. We need some sort of pullback. I don't necessarily think we're going to see a crash. I know a lot of people out there are still on this crash. But I don't see how that's going to happen when you don't have a ton of homes on the market. And I truly think that the banks have learned their lesson from the '08 crash. They're not going to flood the market like they did back then with a ton of inventory. Everyone's going to be a lot smarter about it this time, even if the foreclosure numbers pick up, which there are some reports that they have ticked up a little bit. But you have to remember, they're making those statements based off of record low numbers. During COVID, you couldn't foreclose on anybody. You couldn't kick anybody out of their house. So of course, foreclosures were at basically nothing. So any sort of uptick is going to see a lot more abnormal than usual because of what they're comparing it to. So if you see these types of articles, make sure you read it with a grain of salt and you actually read through the article. Because there's so many times I see these articles and they have these sensationalized headlines. When you actually read what's going on, they always change their tune and it's like, oh, it's not as bad as you probably thought it was. So make sure that you don't make a decision just glancing on your phone or glancing online and seeing foreclosures up to record high. Yeah, because anything off of zero is going to be a record high. So flat appreciation as far as the year goes in 2023. However, I think that if rates do trend downwards towards the end of the year, which is also another prediction I'm going to get into, I would start to bet that if rates come down, values will go up. And another thing that's also been talked about a lot is a recession. So if we do head into a recession, if you look back over the last 40 years, the real estate market has always done fairly well in a recessionary market. So if we do head into that, which again, everyone has been talking about that, it's probably one of the most talked about, most predicted recessions I think we would ever see in our lifetime, it would all make sense. So interest rates would come down and values would go up. So they would all tie in together if that does happen. Whether or not it does or doesn't, I don't know. A lot of the mechanics which we've all watched as far as what could drive the economy, I think it changes from day to day, which also makes it a little confusing and also a little tough for a lot of the experts to make their predictions. Another prediction is that the builder sentiment isn't as high as we saw last year because interest rates went up. I think we're still going to see the same thing. Builders obviously did anything and everything to keep their buyers in contract, despite the attitude that they had during COVID, where if you didn't play their game, they could care less and they would kick you out of the house or cancel your contract. But now they're being a lot more susceptible and willing to negotiate with buyers to keep them in the deal. A lot of builders pre-bought some interest rates. They bought pools of money that they were offering below market rates, which is a smart thing that they did. I think a lot of that is going to expire here in the next few months as we shoot this video in January, or at least some of the builders that I have spoken to offered really low rates and they wanted to get those homes closed by the end of the first quarter. I think after the first quarter, they're probably hoping that things normalize a little more and buyers just come out to purchase homes as they normally would during the spring buying season. Builders were really willing to negotiate. I just did a podcast with a realtor yesterday, and she actually mentioned that one of her clients was able to talk the builder down about $100,000 off the sales price of the house. And as you know, most home builders do not like lowering the sales price because it basically devalues the community. So the fact that they were willing to come down $100,000 was a huge thing that happened. So if you've been watching my channel, I also talked about that and said that if you really wanted to buy a new build, the fourth quarter was the time of year that you should be out there shopping. So hopefully you took my advice and you got a really good deal. In fact, if you did get a good deal, why don't you comment below and tell us about the deal, because I love hearing about people winning here in the real estate market. Builders and sellers alike are offering concessions, and I still think that that's going to be the case this entire year up until interest rates start to come down. Once that starts to happen, I don't think the builders and the sellers are going to be willing to offer so many incentives and credits. They're doing it now simply because they know they need to do something in order to sell their properties. According to the National Association of Home Builders, 59% of the home builders out there were offering some sort of credit. And I believe Redfin released an article that said about 40% of home sellers were offering some sort of credit to sell their home. So everyone's talking, everyone's willing to contribute to get a deal done these days. And this is why I keep saying this is a good time to get into the market. For those of you that are tight on funds, everyone's willing to contribute to get a deal done these days. So why would you not even look and even entertain the idea of buying? Don't let interest rates be the only reason that's deterring you from looking in the market. Find out where you're at before you completely nix the idea of not being a home buyer in the market that we're in today. You have builders, sellers, agents, everyone's willing to contribute to get a deal done in the market. And to me, if you got everyone that's willing to cater to you, you'd be foolish to sit on the sideline and not even look to see what could be possible. And the biggest, most anticipated thing this year that everyone's predicting is that interest rates are going to come back down to somewhere into the 5 range by year end. I'm definitely hoping and thinking that this will happen. Again, I'm kind of going along with the idea that if we head into a recession, interest rates typically come down. So if we start to get into the low 6s, maybe we touch the high 5s, that will then cause more people to get off the fence and buy as long as you have a job. We're starting to see more and more layoffs happen. So as long as you are employed and you have a job, you will be able to get into the market, maybe get a lower interest rate. However, I still think that this entire year, inventory is going to be a problem. Many home sellers that would have normally sold their house, they're not going to sell because there's no reason for me to leave 2 or 3% and take a 6 or 7%. Now at 5%, I may be willing to move at that point. So I think it's going to be one of those wait and see things. If things start to trend that way, I think you will see the market heat up, and I think it's going to heat up fast. I don't think we're going to see a ton of foreclosures this year. There's just far too many people that own their homes without a mortgage. I believe most of the country, if not 1/3, own a home without a mortgage. So worst comes to worst, if you can't pay it, you could sell your house. There's a lot of ways that you can tap into the equity without a job. And I think the people that will take advantage of that are going to be people that wholesale properties, people that flip homes, because if they've been smart and managed their money well, they're going to have a lot of capital that they can take advantage. And I hate using that word, but that is what's going to happen. People that do not know what to do with their house, if they get in a bind, they will sell it for a deep discount because someone's going to offer them cash for the house, and they'll say, look, I'll give you X amount of dollars for your house and I'll give it to you in a week. Will you take my offer? And sadly enough, people will do that. They're going to fall victim to it. So this is why you have to be smart about your house. And this is why I created my channel, to make sure you get your mortgage right. So if you own a house and you have no mortgage, make sure you seek out some advice before you just sell your house to somebody that's literally going to turn it around and sell it for a massive profit. This is what people that wholesale homes do, and this is what people that flip houses do. This is what they look for. They look for these opportunities to take advantage of the person who doesn't understand real estate. So for foreclosures, I don't think we're going to see a ton of that. I think banks are going to be smart. They're going to work with you if you can't make your payments. And for so many of you that are hoping that the market shifts, I always say you have to be careful what you wish for. Because one of the ways that the government plans to slow down inflation is to have massive layoffs, which means a lot of people that are probably watching this video, you might be on the sidelines thinking that you're going to get this amazing deal on a house. But I've said this before, you have to be careful what you wish for because you may not have a job. And more than anything else, you're not going to be in a position to buy a house because you're going to eat through your savings. And if you've been renting and can't pay your landlord, you're going to get evicted, which can probably hit your credit score. So there's this wave of negative things that can come your way for hoping that the market crashes. This is why I don't even like to think about negative things like that because I don't want to experience that. And I don't want you to experience that as well. Because I got into business in 2007. Now, let me tell you, I can clearly remember people that were going through bankruptcies, foreclosures. There were clients that had multiple bankruptcies because they did not know what to do with their money. So take this opportunity now to be smart, create a budget for yourself, get yourself in a position so you pay off high interest credit card debt, and start to be smart about your money. Because if things work out to where interest rates come down, you want to have some cash available because you want to be able to put yourself in a position to take advantage of the market. I've said this to multiple clients. If you're on the sidelines, hey, that's totally fine. But don't let the opportunity that's going to come pass you by because you missed the market in 2011 when homes were being sold here in Las Vegas. We were selling houses for under $100,000. You could buy a condo for under 30 grand, but people didn't buy. So you missed that boat. And then you missed the boat when rates went to 2%. And now you're going to miss the boat again when we see the market shift, whether it be in 2023 or in 2024. You want to be ready because if not, you're going to miss the entire opportunity yet again. So the predictions are the market's going to be flat. However, if interest rates come down, I think things are going to pick up. If we head into a recession, I think things will pick up because history has showed us that it always happens. I think interest rates will come down towards the end of the year, maybe early part of 2024. The builders aren't going to have as much confidence in the marketplace until interest rates start to come down. I think then they'll start to pick up building once again. And I think the sellers are going to continue to offer credits this entire year up until the market starts to move and interest rates come down and the buyers start to come out again because we don't have a ton of inventory. Until we start to see somewhat of a shift with sellers and buyers, the sellers have to play ball, and right now they have to offer credit. So if you are a buyer, this could literally be a perfect store for you to get into the game, bearing that you have a job and your finances are in place. But again, if you're not ready, you can hit the link below. There's a link to my first-time home buyer guide that will walk you through the entire process. If you still don't know where to start, you can send me an email and we can come up with a custom game plan for you. Whether it's going to take you 6 months or a year or 2 years to buy, we can customize that for you so you can be a winner in the market. So thanks for watching. Share this with a friend who's on the sidelines, maybe with you as well, and I'll see you on the next video.